baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire rising from the flames that dies only to burn again. Let me dance in the rhythm of your flame. If I burn, let me die to burn again. If I burn, let me die to burn again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get Lit. I am Blue Star Dear Woman, and my beautiful co-host Rebecca Hahn is not able to join today, but today we have a special guest. And hello, I want to say hello to all our guests that are in the chat room. I love you so much, and I also want to acknowledge those of you who have been putting comments in Facebook. I just love you, and thank you for the feedback. It really helps, and I just get so encouraged when I read those messages and I see you responding to each other. So grateful. And if I'm a little slow on getting in the chat room, I will observe, but I'll do the best at my multitasking self as I can. So the theme of the show today is let's talk about death. And as many of our viewers know, Rebecca and I have touched upon death in many different aspects. I mean, it's a long, ongoing theme. And as you may also recall, it's also a practice. It's a daily practice to be aware that we are actually living and dying with each inhale and exhale. And in many of the intercultural ancient scripts, we're reminded that one of the purposes of being on the planet right now is if we can have conscious awareness of dying, which is essentially being mindful of our attachments and being able to consciously let go of them, experience the loss, experience the grief, that this practice is in fact what we're here on the planet Earth doing, is that we're preparing ourselves for the day that we really know deep within us we no longer die. So I'm always reaching for that kernel of truth. But today, I just want to share a little bit about Greta Allendorf, who is a home funeral guide. And she works with the natural death care. And I met Greta as she had been invited to one of our local coffee shops called Brews. And Katrina, one of the owners, had initiated what's called Death Cafe. And apparently, this is an international happening. And what Death Cafe is any cafe can sponsor this. It's an invitation to come and eat cake and talk about death. And the participants are invited to talk about any aspect of death. And as you can imagine, this covers a lot of different areas. It's like, what do you do when you know that a beloved or dear one is beginning to transition? There's lots of preparation. There's lots of information that we have to gather. How are we going to make them the most comfortable? What's the best environment for their transition? How aware are the family and friends that can be conducive to that person's wishes? Funeral preparations. And in this day and age, one of the reasons I've invited Greta here is that she is really exploring some of the innovative and new ways that we can start to embrace death differently. And I think what perked my interest so much is that there are there are options that are more natural to our death experience for those dying and for those attending to the ones that are transitioning. And that's one of the things I'm going to ask Greta to speak about. And so anyway, Greta had been invited to Bruise, and she helped facilitate the discussion, get the discussion going. And it was just absolutely brilliant. And for those who are local, we will be doing another Death Cafe next Thursday, a week from tonight, at 6 o'clock at Bruce. And I will be assisting Katrina in that discussion. And so well, I'm just going to check the chat room real quick, and I want to say hi to everybody. Look at you guys. Everybody's on board. I love you guys. And also a reminder, anyone who is viewing, you can enter the chat room and ask questions and make comments, and you also are always welcome to call into this show and join our conversation. Yeah, look at you. Okay. And so now I'd like to invite Greta to turn on her video and introduce our lovely guest. There she is.
Hi.
Greta. Welcome to Get Lit.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. And I really appreciate it. I know that this is kind of a new forum for you, and I hope that we just make it as comfortable as possible. It's just like I shared with Greta. I said, man, this is the best network it can possibly come on. So I guess the opening question, Greta, I think would be, is just the whole topic of death. You know, like how did you get guided and led to enter this field?
I think that I've always been kind of fascinated by death because it's just this great mystery. But everyone that I had known that had died it was always kind of traumatic, and they fought against it, or we went the conventional funeral route and everything until I was married and my mother-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And she wanted to be completely in charge of her death. So she just started doing tons of research and compiled a binder for us whenever she got closer. And she was like, this is exactly what you're going to do. This is what it's going to look like. This is what I want to happen afterwards. And this is where I want to be buried. She planned everything. And I had no idea about any of this, about natural funeral options. I didn't know what conscious dying was, but that's what she had chose to do. And so I moved in with her the last month and just walked with her through this, and it was amazing. And it just changed my whole idea about death. And after she died, we took care of her body. We let her stay at home for a couple of days afterwards as the family came to visit her. And then we put her in her coffin and took her in a truck to the place that she chose to be buried at, which was 2 hours away, and buried her ourselves. And the whole thing was beautiful. The funeral wasn't sad. We all laughed and sang, and she looked beautiful. I had never seen a dead body that actually looked dead. Usually they're covered in makeup, and the whole thing was amazing. And then a year later, I had a baby, and I had her at home. And the first thing I thought about afterwards was that the two experiences were completely the same, that the energy felt the same, and they were just both equally beautiful experiences. And I don't know, it made me more interested in this natural death movement, and I started doing a lot of research, and I learned about the Home Funeral Alliance, and started taking online courses to become a certified death midwife and home funeral guide.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's my story.
Oh, wow. Greta, I mean, I've got chills going up and down my body. And, this is such a beautiful day with you because um, I've had so many experiences with both death and birth. Shamanically, I've drummed new spirits into the world, and shamanically, I've drummed spirits out. And I share that with you. I
Mhm.
feel that birth and death are one and the same. The experience of that spirit moving
Mhm.
is just, oh, it's chilling, it's brilliant, and it's like, it is something to be happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And neither of them, or they rarely necessitate any kind of medical intervention.
Mhm.
But we've kind of lost touch with that in both birth and death.
Mhm.
But it's coming back for birth, and hopefully we can make it come back for death too.
Right on. Because you
Yeah.
mentioned an important aspect, and I'm sure most people have had this experience. But the body gets made up and covered with makeup. It's like our culture has disguised that the person is dead.
Yeah.
And, and I think we've done that to soothe ourselves, but that always seemed odd to me.
Yeah, I think it's really unfair for the family because I don't know, whenever a body's embalmed and then dressed up and made up, it seems so hard for the family to grasp the reality of the loss, you know?
Yeah.
And when a body can just lay at home for even even like half a day or a couple of days, the family can be there, they can have their hands on the body, they can have the body in their space and realize like this person's not here anymore. Um, and it makes it easier to begin the grieving process and
Yeah.
accept the reality of the loss.
Right. Well, we're talking about this is a major step in our culture.
Mhm.
And I just want everyone to know, first of all, what an affirmation it is that we have someone like you, Greta, that is here to share with us we're changing and we're finally embracing a very spiritual part of our nature. I
Mhm.
mean, the death process is real. And so I just wanted to really make a note that you are really a beautiful acknowledgement that we're progressing in
Yeah.
our consciousness. Yes.
Yeah. And it's not even a new thing. I mean, it's what we always did until Civil War time and embalming. Um, so I don't know. We're just going back to what we did
Yes.
before.
Yes. And maybe like when you pursued your research and actually, I mean, I imagine you had to go through some kind of process to become a home funeral guide.
Hmm.
What does that entail? Like what's that kind of education these days?
Well, there's several different kinds. You can go to hands-on workshops. They're usually in the Pacific Northwest. In Seattle, there's a lot. And I think that there's some happening in Texas too. Um, but most people I know go to the ones in Seattle. I did an online course through uh, Beyond Hospice in Austin,
Hmm.
and it's ran by a woman, Donna Belk, who she's amazing. And it was an 88-hour course, I think. And there's just tons of recommended books and readings, and you have to write like several papers over this. You have to host a home funeral workshop in your town and document it. You have to participate in conference calls every month with other home funeral guides. And it was amazing. It didn't feel like work at all because the whole time I was learning so much and it was so interesting, and this world of people kind of opened up to me, and it was
Right.
really great. And now you also at the end you become a member of the Home Funeral Alliance, and that's been really great. Last year in October, they had a conference in California, so I got to go out there and spend the week with Donna and many other teachers, people who have been home funeral guides for 25 years, and then lots of new people too. It was really amazing.
Wow. So a home funeral guide is not necessarily a mortician. Is that right?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, the difference is you're not actually doing the hands-on work. You're kind of empowering the family to do it themselves.
Okay.
Because we see the benefit of the family carrying out all of this death care themselves,
Mhm.
and we're just there to support them through it. So we might not even actually show up at the time of death. It might just be educating them pre-death or on the phone, answering questions that
Mhm.
come up. Or, I mean, you could go into that situation and help the family if they don't feel equipped to do it themselves. But most often, you're just empowering them to do it.
So you're a consultant and a resource. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, you're really comforting. I mean, essentially you're counseling people, I would imagine. Is that part of the education? Like how to, I mean, it becomes so spiritual, people are afraid of death because they don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
So is that part of the education to know how to facilitate that?
Um, Somewhat. A lot of it's just kind of being led by the family. So you have to know how to go into a situation and regardless of what your own beliefs are,
Mhm.
just kind of embrace whatever they believe is happening, you know.
Right.
Um, so yeah, you might talk with them, like talk with the dying person if they're unsure or they have fear about what's happening.
Mhm.
That might come up, but
Right.
usually it's just what you go along with whatever their belief
You're just
system
in
is.
the moment and you share
Yeah,
what you know. Yeah, I
yeah,
would imagine that's got to be really challenging because
yeah,
you kind of have to be sensitive to, what their beliefs might be. I mean, they may be a very conservative Catholic or Judaic practice,
hmm,
and so they're probably traveling along that path in that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Huh. Okay, the chat room is going wild. I have never seen it so active. I just love you guys, and I'm going to just see if I can pick up some threads here. Um, let's see now. Here, okay, and I'm just randomly grabbing your chats, folks. Let's see. Karen is responding to Tracy said something. What did Tracy say? I think she said, I saw it go by, but I think it was like Tracy was just acknowledging that she doesn't necessarily believe that we die. And then I think, okay, she's always seen it as a transition into a different form. And then I think Karen's saying she doesn't know quite what to believe. I think I'm more afraid of the actual process of dying itself. Fair enough. And I think part of that, Karen, is we fear death because we don't understand it. Do you ever have any outright, Greta, does anyone just go, I am really freaked out that I'm dying? Or,
Well, yeah. I mean, I think most people are.
yeah.
um, but yeah, most people that are going to reach out to a home funeral guide have made some sort of peace with it, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, a lot of what I'm doing now is just like educational stuff and like talking to people and letting them know that this is an option and that they have the right to do all of this themselves without a funeral director. And um, people, yeah, people don't even really want to talk about death usually
Right.
initially. And then once once the conversation starts, that changes. But
Well, you have, you have some incredible information about the particular ways that we can have natural death care. And I know we're both located in Arkansas, and that you have some legal understanding of what is allowable here, but, you know, it can always be broached in other states. And I don't think people know that we have options. I think one of the things is we always wonder, you know, why can't we take our beloved deceased body and dispose of it the way we want? And I don't even think we are that knowledgeable about why we can't. But I think that's what you opened up for me, Greta, is like, oh my gosh, I mean, we could be buried in other places. We don't have to be, like you just even said, your mother-in-law, you transported her in your own truck. I mean, you know, I don't think people know that we have those options. So maybe if you could break some of that myth down for us. And what I'm really going after is those organic, if you'll speak to those organic bags. I just thought that was that is so brilliant. But yeah, just any place that you know that we don't have information about traditional death.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in no state are you required to be embalmed. So it's your right to not be embalmed, to stay at home. I think it's up to 24 hours without some kind of refrigeration. But people don't know that you can just use dry ice or gel packs. And you can keep a body home. I probably wouldn't go more than 3 days, but you can. And it's even longer if you're going to be cremated. But so it's your right for the family to do everything themselves without help from a funeral director. If someone dies at a hospital, it's the family's right to pick up the body and bring it home. A lot of the hospitals don't even know that. So sometimes you have to call for backup from the coroner who knows the law. And as far as burial, you can be buried anywhere without being embalmed. Some cemeteries require a vault, but that's just to keep their ground level. It has nothing to do with preserving your body or anything. You can be buried on your own land if you're outside of city limits, but you have to go to the county health department and get a permit for that. And you'll have to get your land surveyed and do a test hole. It's really similar to getting a septic tank permit. So, but you can do that. So if that's somebody's wish, you need to start working on it ahead of time because it could take a couple of weeks or even a month. They recently changed the law that you can't cremate your family member yourself, but that's the one I'm working on. I'm trying to get changed.
Maybe you could go into that. Like, what would that?
Well, I'm trying to open an open air cremation site in Washington County. I'm also working to open a green cemetery because Arkansas doesn't have one. And a green cemetery is basically a cemetery where no one is embalmed. Everyone is buried in biodegradable materials, basically. So like a simple wood casket, cardboard box, organic fibers, like a shroud or a sheet, or just put in the ground, So a green cemetery and the funeral pyre, there's only one legal operating funeral pyre in the U.S., and it's in Crestone, Colorado. And basically, it's just a small, simple structure. The families register with this nonprofit group and bring the body to the site and cremate their loved one there with the help of this organization who has been very well trained. They've been doing this for 10 years legally, like has this organization, and then another 20 years before that, just on the back of a flatbed trailer, basically, that they traveled around. It's called a porta pyre. But I'm really interested in doing that here. That's my passion. And I was supposed to be in Little Rock today meeting with the State Board of Funeral Directors to try to talk them into that. But they need another 2 months for their legal counsel to look over it, apparently. So I'll be going in May now.
I mean, you're breaking ice here, girl. You are really cracking it open, and I love it. I love your pioneer self.
Well, and some other exciting things. I have a friend in Seattle who has been working on this project called the Urban Death Project, and it's human composting. And she is in the process of designing the prototype right now for the facility, which is basically a big tower, and you walk up this spiral ramp, carry the body, and then at the top you'll lay the body in, I think they're looking right now at alfalfa or some kind of natural materials, and enclose it, and then over the course of the next month the body completely decomposes, and then the family comes back together, a portion of compost. So it's really amazing, and we're kind of in the same stages right now of just trying to educate the public and get all of the regulating agencies on board.
And what are all the regulating agents? I mean, like, who are the agencies that have a hand in this?
Well, for me, for the funeral pyre, it would be the ADEQ, which is the Department for Environmental Air Quality, and the Arkansas State Board of Funeral Directors, which is interesting because I'm still not sure how I'm going to get their permission. But it will be great if I can. And then also I'll have to get a permit from the county. And I've been working with Washington County, but I don't know if that's the right place yet. That's just where I'm at. I might look at Madison County or Newton County.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned those counties because, being a lot more rural, you still have, many generational families living there that probably, for all we know, have family buried on their property when there was no legal restriction. So there might be more of a receptivity, that
And I know in the past there have been families cremating their loved ones themselves out in Madison County, and even here in Washington County, 10 to 12 years ago, there was someone out in Winslow. And I think that was the thing that actually got the laws changed, because they weren't super educated about how to do it. And nothing went too terribly wrong, but neighbors called the sheriff had to come, the coroner had to come. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew if it was legal. And in the end, no one got arrested and everything was fine, but people were really disturbed by it and the fact that there wasn't a lot of regulation.
So you think, like, the likely resistance to this occurrence is going to be mostly the neighbors and people who are unfamiliar and still have their own fear? Or
I think mainly. Most of the people I talk to are really excited about it, and they think, like, of course, that's what I want to be done with my body. But people are really concerned about smell, which isn't actually an issue, or things like that. But in my experience in Crestone, it was really interesting. The only opposition that they had initially was the closest neighbor. And he went to every city council meeting to try to shut this place down. He was so upset. He had bumper stickers printed. He his main concern was like ash blowing onto his property.
Mm.
And then whenever I was there in September, he had actually been sick and came to the funeral pyre for the first time in 10 years just to check it out. Like he could walk to it, and it's just this open, it's kind of in the desert. It's always open, unlocked. And so he visited it, and as soon as he stepped foot inside, he was just transformed and wanted that. So he filled out the paperwork. And whenever I was there in September, we cremated him. So it was kind of interesting to see that project go full circle.
Wow, I got chills on that one too.
Yeah, it was great.
Wow.
I mean,
Oh my
definitely.
gosh. And the organization that I would think, does the FDA poke in on this at all? Health? Then
Well, on the natural burial, the like county health department is definitely involved, in their soil testing and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't have anything to do with the cremation aspect.
So if you could give a little more detail about what is it called? It's an earth bag, that other option?
Yeah, there's several different things. Are you talking about the mushroom one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot. I've just seen articles about it recently, but yeah, it's made of natural fibers, and it has mushroom spores in it, I guess. So whenever you're buried, you break down quickly, and there's mushrooms. I don't know. I know more about there's an ecopod that is like a biodegradable bag that's shaped like an egg, and the body is in a fetal position inside of it with a sapling. So you plant it all, and a tree grows from your remains. And that one, it's out of production right now because it was in the UK, and they're moving the factory to the US. So hopefully in the next year or two, we'll have that option here. But right now they have little ones for your cremains, where you can grow a tree from your cremains. So,
well, I just want to take a moment, and if the viewers are being as wowed about this conversation as I am, and just enjoying Greta so much, I want to remind you that on the broadcast window is where you can find Greta and her Facebook page, Natural Death Care. And also, if you go to the CCN shows, look up Get Lit. This is episode 52. You'll also find the links to Greta in that webpage, because this is just fascinating, and I just hope that this is something that's really going to ripple across the planet. And again, a reminder, I mean, we're talking about the reverence of life here. And, when we all say, look, we think one of the greatest healing things we can do on this planet is to come back to the mother. Well, this is definitely an art of coming back to the mother, honoring once we're done with these physical organisms, these body suits, that there's a real reverence and respect for the life cycle, just like the animals and the plants and the trees. And it's just the beautiful art of renewing the love in our hearts and our connectedness to all things. So I hope that ripple is going out across this interview and time together. Let me see here, Greta. And I just want everyone to know, if you want to join the chat room, there's some beautiful conversation going on here. People are sharing some of their experiences of being around loved ones transitioning. And yeah, and just some real memorable experiences. And we have Karen, she's saying, I love your alternatives that Greta is discussing. Tracy, so excellent to have all these options. And it's just, I'm so glad to see that you're as moved as I am. let's see. And if anyone has any particular questions for Greta, I know I'm trying to keep up here. If you have any particular questions, feel free to put those in or call. Just come on in and join the conversation. So I'd like to, where and how are some of the places, Greta, that, those of us who are not that familiar, I mean, obviously you're one contact, but where would you recommend people start broadening their understanding?
The National Home Funeral Alliance is probably your best contact because they have links to tons of amazing resources for education and funeral options, and you can link up with any home funeral guide that's registered with their organization, which most of us are.
Right.
And then you can also find links to do it all yourself without a home funeral guide. And yeah, and lots of friendly funeral homes in your area and stuff. So that's the best resource, I think.
That sounds good. That sounds good. So I think that's what, thank goodness for the internet these days too, because we can communicate so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
If someone comes to you, you're not only able to mentor and counsel, but you become a resource. You're actually able to say, here, if you're interested in this kind of preparation. And are you affiliated with hospices as well?
Not really. I've met with Circle of Life in Rogers and kind of know the people there, but I respect hospice like crazy. I love hospice, but I'm not affiliated with any of them.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like hospices is, it's very comforting to me to know that hospices exist.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in several situations where loved ones have passed on and hospice comes in and they're just, they're consistent. They really leave a lot of space. They're just kind of there to do that official peripheral thing.
Mm-hmm.
But to know, and I think that's what our people have asked for. See, everyone wants to know, I'm not going to suffer while I die, am I? We don't want to be totally, and that's a real question for people who want to have a conscious death, but they want that balance of, I don't really want to be in severe pain. And hospice kind of offers that, it offers that option that you can actually self-dose. And I think, again, that's the people needing the comfort because they're so afraid they're going to be in pain.
Yeah.
And, but I do feel that there is more and more awareness of, well, okay, how does one die consciously? And some of those deeper questions, it's like, do people seem to share that at all? I mean, do they ever go to the depths of like, what death is? Do they ever entertain their own ideas of that?
I don't know. With my mother-in-law, it was really interesting because she was a very spiritual person, and she just seemed so in tune to her body and everything. And whenever, I guess it was just the last like 2 or 3 days that she seemed kind of unconscious, but there were times when we would try to talk to her and stuff. We were like, we know she can hear us. We're going to keep talking. And she was a pretty intense woman too. And one time she was just like, shut up. Please just shut up. She hadn't spoken in 2 days. And she was like, just shut up. I'm doing my thing. This is beautiful. And this isn't yours.
Wow.
So we were like, okay, all right. So
What a
that was really comforting to me because I was like, I don't know. I had no idea what to think about death. And she was like, this is amazing right now. Don't interrupt what I'm doing, you know? Um, and I've heard that same sort of thing from people who have had near-death experiences or come back
Mhm.
after being clinically dead, you know? They have
Yeah,
that same kind of like everything is really beautiful and there's just so much love around me and
right.
I find a lot of comfort in all of that.
That is so amazing. I mean, she was such a teacher, you
Oh,
know?
she was.
That is so
Yeah.
cool. It's like, I mean, she really switched roles. She's like, all right, chill out, folks. I got this. I
Yeah.
got this. And,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, what beautiful messages to just say, hey, chill out, be quiet, shut up, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that it was like an actual process, kind of like birthing,
yeah,
that took, it seemed to take a lot of her focus.
yes.
And I don't know. And that's another idea I like about conscious dying. And it seems like this happens more often in home funerals where people get the opportunity to die in a way that sets an example for like the next generation. I don't know.
Mhm.
I really appreciate that from her death, the that I got to experience that. And I think it was such an amazing gift that she gave to all of us. I mean, there was one side of the family that was so conservative and completely horrified by all of the choices that she had made and how she wanted to die and then what she wanted to happen afterwards. But then she taught us all so much um, with her death. And I'm sure there's not a single person that wasn't changed by that experience. So
Wow.
um, I
I
think
want
we
to
all have that
acknowledge her.
responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge her spirit right now because, I believe we are all connected, and for all we know,
Hmm.
she's tuned right in. I just want to thank you
Yeah.
for educating and for Greta for carrying the message and the experience to us because you keep it on,
Yeah.
and this is how spirit continues to live,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I just think that's so beautiful. And I want to share, one of my experience with my mother. But while I'm doing that, dear chatters, I would really like you to call in because I think sharing your stories. This is what it's about. It's kind of like we're having a death cafe on the internet today. And uh, if any of you are so inclined, call in and join this conversation with us. In the meantime, I did want to acknowledge once again about birth and death. Um, there is such, this isn't something that you can, it's invisible. It's a feeling, but you can, all of us can readily embrace the experience of a new spirit child starting to move and starting to be birthed and coming into this physical reality. I mean, anyone who's been around birthing knows that there's just like, whew, everything gets really altered.
Mhm.
It's kind of like you're on a birth drug.
Yeah.
Everybody is in that experience. But for those of us who have allowed ourselves to be relaxed around death, it's the same experience. You can actually feel the essence of the spirit. You can feel the spirit alive, the consciousness alive. That's like when we talk about when someone is in a comatose or unconscious, you can still talk to that spirit. They're still hearing you. And that's the beautiful gift that we get is that that's the moment we learn that we really never die. Oh, good. Looks like we got a caller. I'll pause.
Hello?
Hi, who do we have?
Oh, this is Tracy. So good
Oh,
to see y'all.
it's great to have you on, Tracy.
I think there's a little delay.
Oh, all right. We'll pause between responding.
I'll just go ahead and mute you. Continue your thought. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're not interrupting. But I was just acknowledging that I think that's one of the gifts that we're given during death is that, and it was something my mother nurtured in me. She says, look, see, nobody ever dies. And I think this is the beginning of opening up, reclaiming our spiritual nature, is that we are eternal. We don't really die, but we move into this new form or new life or however that unfolds. But our consciousness, there is a spirit being that continues. Like I know right now, anyone and everyone who's transitioned is probably listening. You know, they're right here involved. And I talk to all my deceased family all the time and really feel their presence. But go ahead, Tracy. I want to bring you in. It looks like we have another caller. Oh, good. Here we go. Who is our other caller?
The other caller is Jerry. Hi, Blue.
Oh, beautiful. Hi, Jerry. I'm so glad to have you too.
I have to say I'm fascinated by the options and things that Greta was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
With the transition of Tracy's father a couple of years ago, and my father didn't even know those kind of options existed. I figured that it was all very, nope, got to go to the mortuary, got to have the funeral place, do the body, all the prep, everything else. And I think it's actually fantastic that those options are available. It's really great.
Yes. And I think, and that's why I want to keep sharing. Go ahead, Tracy.
Well, this is a huge topic for me. It's fascinated me my entire life. I've been studying it on my own, trying to figure it out and what it is and why. Well, at a young age, there's a little boy in our neighborhood that passed, and I remember having a dream about him. And when I had that dream, it was like I just was like, death. What is death? They're still there. So I didn't have that fear of it. I just thought, oh, so now he's in this other place. So that's why I started questioning it and wondering what it was. And yeah, it's funny to me because it's natural to me. I'm just not afraid of it because I just think it's a shift. But when my dad passed, to go to the hospital, and I knew when we got the call that, you know, he was not doing very well, that it just clicked. Okay, now it's time to do what you know, like put it to the test. And so all I really had to go on was, you know, I just want him to be the most comfortable he can be, the happiest he can be, and feel the most love he could feel. And I wasn't willing to allow anything but that. And Jerry will tell you, I was pretty focused, laser focused, and really feeling it and feeling him. And so I did that for a couple of days. Just, it was the three of us, me and Jerry and his sister, my aunt. And the rest of my family didn't want to be involved, which was good and bad because I didn't want their negative energy, which they were bringing. And I kind of like that I got to run the show, which they kind of gave me full reign of, all right, do what you do. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what we're doing. And to see the effect on my dad was incredible. He had a very, very hard life, and he did it to himself, and we talked about that kind of stuff when we reconnected when I was older. And so I really could relate to him, and I wanted him to know it was okay, whatever he did, that he didn't like or judged himself for. That was the last thing I wanted him to focus on at the time. So we did everything we could to make him laugh, all the doctors and nurses. Everybody was on board, and it was really beautiful, and you could just feel it. And he didn't get better, but I don't think he ever felt that much love in his entire life. And from there at the hospital, when they said, okay, you know, he's going to have to be moved to hospice, I didn't really know what that was, but I was like, okay, we're doing that. And I was so blown away by these people because, well, anybody who knows me knows I'm into the energy of everything. So when somebody came in the room and said, we'd like to offer your father a Reiki session, I didn't know what to do. I was like, yes, that would be the most amazing thing. So this lady came in, and she was so lovely, and so she performed the session with me there. And while I was just in amazement watching it all go down, I could see a white light literally shining into my dad. And, well, there are no words. And so then after, I'm sorry, I'm shaky. This is a lot.
That's all right. Thank you for continuing.
It's just so big. When she finished the session, she communicated to me that the only message that kept ringing in her head was something that I've believed for so long and knew it, but never had like supernatural confirmation of it. And so she turns to me and she says, the only words that I can tell you is we are one. And I said, oh, I'm done. I am done. That's all I need to know. And so it was a very beautiful experience. And I'm aware that everybody who got touched, even in the outskirts of where we were focused, you could see them change. And my only guide that I really went by was, when my pets die, what do I do? And I want him to feel that. So that's my story. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking a quiet moment just to be present with you and the spirit of your dad.
Oh, he's so been with me since you announced the topic of the show. What it triggered, the memory, of course. But the past, however long it's been, I guess a couple of days, yeah, he's been full right here next to me. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and, that's really important that we acknowledge these spirits right now. I think many of our loved ones who are close to us, I'm just going to thoroughly invite them, because I want all of us to acknowledge that their consciousness and presence is still alive and in our hearts. And that's where we all connect. And it's rare that we take these moments, these special moments, to acknowledge that those who have passed on are still right here, just like we'll be. So blessings to all those who have transitioned, who are in transition. This reminds me of a show that Rebecca and I did several months ago. We had Justin Deschamps and Julian Robles on our show, and we ended our show talking about death. The following day, Julian passed over, and we did a memorial show the following week and had his partner Justin come on. And one of the things that we had shared that we wanted to continue to do, and I've seen it happening, is that we would continue to acknowledge Julian with us, his presence continuing. So right now I acknowledge Julian and that he is loved and we feel his love. And it was one of the things that we said. It's like, continue to talk to your loved ones. Their presence and consciousness continues with us always. And so may we all be comforted. So I was checking into the chat room, and something that I think Pam, welcome Pam, she spoke to, I'd like to have a pre-death family gathering. And that's kind of a beautiful idea too. But before I move on to that, Greta, Jerry, Tracy, did you want to add anything to this moment?
I would like to add a little extra thing.
Yes, please do.
When it just triggered a memory. When we went into the hospital, I was talking to the doctors, and they offered consolation, support, and all of this. And it was funny because when I just flat out said to them, well, I don't really believe in death, so I'm good with what's happening, I don't see it that way. The look on their faces was just like, what? Like they didn't know how to process it. So several of the doctors sat down with me just to hear me and sort of go, what? And understand sort of where I was coming from. And after having spoken to them, yeah, they relayed several stories to me just of the fear alone how it blocks people in the situation at the hospital. So yeah, I think this is a great topic to dig into. Thanks.
I know I've often said too is that all the, when we create that environment, it's grieving for those of us who are still in our physical organism. The person that is passed on is at peace. The body is no longer in struggle and pain. It's us. We're there for us. And so, we're there to understand and embrace death and allow our grief, the loss of something that's been familiar in our lives. But it's for us, those of us still here. Mm-hmm. Greta, did you have something to say? I feel like you must have some love wisdom for us.
Yeah, I was just thinking a lot about the not believing in death, and I mean I don't know. I just hadn't thought a lot about that. So that's what I was kind of thinking, and I guess I'm not really sure what I believe for after death. Like, I do believe that there's something else, and I think that we're just like having a human experience right now. But I'm totally in love with my human experience. So I'm like, I want to acknowledge the end of it and keep my eyes on that so that I can continue making the most out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess I do believe in death in a way, and it's not scary to me because I know it's like just part of the process, just like birth, and that that I hope that there is something afterwards that's beautiful and amazing, and I think that there is, but I'm really practical. I'm like, I can't be sure of it, so I don't know. That's what I was thinking about.
All right, and I'm glad you shared your perspective because, we all want to be represented here.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. And I think there are plenty of people that, and I just love what you said, is you're grateful. You're grateful for the experience you're having.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what better way to prepare for death is enjoy every moment of what your experience is now, and then you'll have another experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a feeling, by the time any more of us need to transition, we're going to have so much more awareness, and information as we continue. And I'm sure it's just going to get easier and easier. But I hope the message that you just shared, Greta, is what really permeates in our mind and hearts right now. Be sure you're enjoying this moment.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on. Yeah. Jerry, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I had one thing to add. Tracy sort of touched on it really quickly, but one of the things I thought was so cool, and again, this is around the transition of her dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like she had said, he had a hard life, did it to himself, that kind of stuff. But just from what I know of his family history and knowing him myself, the man beat up on himself for the way things had gone for the better part of 40 years, I would think, yeah, about that. And a lot of the discussion so far today has been about the family, the loved ones, the people who are left with the transition. I thought one of the most amazing things that with Tracy leading, Tracy, myself, and Tracy's aunt, his sister, was to get him comfortable with what was going on. When we got there, it was like he was scared like a little boy. Just, it was fear. You could read it in his face, see it in his body, and it was tearing him up. And through talking with him and being there with him and sharing love and happiness and fun in the hospital room, he actually, but one of the last things he said was that previously he had talked about what he was seeing sort of in his semi-comatose state, and he was very fear-filled. It's dark. He doesn't know what's going on, that kind of stuff. And by the end, he was saying, I see it now. It's beautiful, and smiled. And he said, I'm trying to think of the exact way he put it, but I think he actually said the words like, I don't think I've ever been this happy, or this is the happiest I've ever been. And it was the transmutation of his self-judgment, doubt, fear, and all of that to acceptance and love was incredible and so empowering to be a part of, and obviously for him, because he transitioned really easily by that point. He was sleeping soundly. They weren't even really like some cases where they are feeding. They're basically doping the patients up to quell their pain as they transition, so they're really out of it. He went into sleep, and the whole experience was really incredible. And that piece of it, I think, was just as important as how do the people who are left deal with things. It's how to help the individual go through and not be afraid.
Yes. I'm so glad you shared this, Jerry, because for those that are in those challenging situations where all you want is for that one to be at peace, and knowing they had a hard life, knowing they worked hard for 40 years, and that at that moment, those approaching moments, that such love and surrender and release can come through. That's a gift. That's a real gift. And I think we do that for those of us who are still present and living. I think our desire too as we transition is, I don't want you to worry about me. It's okay, So I think that's an important story to share. So grateful. So grateful.
Well, I'm grateful to have the platform to share it on. It's Tracy and I honestly have talked about this scenario and such prior to her father passing, but for many years now. And it really just the knowledge, and her dad had passed a couple of years ago. My dad passed this winter. Made my dealing with and even helping like my brothers and my mom cope with his ailing condition and then transitioning go so much smoother, because I knew this stuff worked and that it made things go smoothly, and it absolutely did.
Right. And what I feel, we can talk about our loved ones transitioning for the rest of our lives. I think that's totally appropriate. It's like, we call them back in, we celebrate, Often I think what the sadness is, especially for those who are the closest to those who we've lost, is that it's still, these people are still in our hearts. It can be 2 and 5 years later. These people are still in our hearts. And it's an honor to talk about them again, resurface and continue, because I hold the belief that we continue our relationship. I've evolved with all my family that has gone before me. I'm still evolving in my relationship with them. So I think this is too what the launch of Death Cafe is about. People still need to talk about every aspect of death, every aspect. So I'm grateful, and yes, and please, you two just stay on. If there's other callers, I love what you introduced, Pam. I was about to share that. Pam was talking about, the process of dying while we're alive, and I've heard people talk about this. Greta, do you have any experience with people who said, okay, I want to go through all the procedure while I'm here? I mean, it sounds like your mother-in-law certainly did it, right?
You mean like are you talking about the pre-death celebration?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Something like that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. I mean, we didn't necessarily have any kind of celebration. She had a lot of rituals before she died, but we didn't have like an actual celebration. But I've heard of people having their funerals before they die so that they can participate in them. or like One Big Last Party. And I think that's a really great concept. I like that.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to participate in my funeral.
Right. I mean, I really do want to design the transition, but I also want to say the words I once said about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just make sure we got the story straight.
Yeah. Yeah. And she did actually write her obituary and her eulogy herself.
That is so cool.
This is what I want you to say. So.
That story, Greta, that definitely needs to be in some documentary.
Yeah.
You know, that is just too perfect.
Yeah.
Speaking of a documentary, what I did put on the webpage is it had come up, I think, Greta, when we were at Death Cafe 2 weeks ago, about the movie Grief Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And I put that on the webpage for anyone who's interested. Grief Walker is it's a beautiful documentary, and I think it offers an experience of those who are just starting to wonder, you know, the spiritual essence of death, the beauty, and how organic it is to die. I think that documentary offers it. So if anybody wants, you just go to CCN, you go onto shows, you find Get Lit, and you'll see the link for, this is episode 52. You can open it now, even though the archive video isn't in it yet. And the link to Grief Walker is in there, as well as it's on my face page where I advertise the show.
Yeah, and if you, the movie's about Stephen Jenkinson, and if you go to his website, orphanwisdom.com, there's a lot of great interviews with him on there and talks. I listened to one this morning before we started the call, his newest one, and he will challenge the way you think about death in every aspect. He's just an amazing thinker and wordsmith. So
Nice.
you should check that out.
You know what, Greta, after the show, if you'll send me that link, I'll put it up on the webpage too. And you can also put it in the chat room doesn't take links real well, but you can send it to me in Facebook messaging and I'll add it to the webpage.
Okay.
So now what am I seeing? There's something about dancing and music going on here. What do we got here? Oh, that would have to be a part of it. Oh, and then we have glitter will be passed out to everyone, of course. Okay, yeah. Yeah, don't forget the glitter. And yeah, and I agree. Sherry's mentioning a special place in my heart for animals. Yeah, I've been with so many animals transitioning as well. And it's all the same. It's spirit's moving. I don't know how the flamingos got in there, but I guess they're dancing. Oh, here we got Sherry's planning for a disco party. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, and I think the stories right now, you know, like I said, it's like at Death Cafe, it's really important to share stories and to know that we're not alone. You know, everybody experiences this, and I think that's what we're trying to do is demystify. But so importantly, to have someone like Greta who's letting us know there's ways to have your heart's desire fulfilled in how you want to honor your loved ones in all aspects while they're in transition and preparing, and the kinds of conversations you can have with them. And then, of course, that story with your mother-in-law is like, that's just beyond. That is just the beyond story, but so brilliantly done. And Tracy or Jerry, if at any point you want to jump in here, you can. I know you're still with us. And Pam, I'm going to encourage you out there. I would love for you to share what you're suggesting and the things that you would like to have considered while alive in preparation. And anyone else in the chat room or who's viewing, you're always welcome to join us.
I got really excited at the last Death Cafe about the idea of the funeral parades, that we talked about. I love that. Like, who wouldn't want a parade afterwards instead of a funeral? That's what I want.
I'm good with the parade.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, how can I turn that into my next business? I love to throw parties. I could throw a great parade.
Oh my gosh, Greta, all you have to do is say, I'm organizing the death parade.
Yeah.
And, right?
Yeah.
What happened, and let me give a little more information about what Greta's bringing up. Eureka Springs is famous for, we have a parade for absolutely anything and everything in this town. I think it's just about every weekend there's a parade. It's like Mardi Gras. It's almost like a mini New Orleans here. But anyway, so it came up. It was typical in Eureka Springs. It was like, actually, I think I suggested it. I said, gosh, we have so many parades. Maybe we could have death parades. And because we have so many performing artists, everybody loves to do anything for a parade. But could you imagine, like, the body could even be on one of the flatbed trucks, right? And, we could have their favorite music playing. And all you have to do is get a permit in Eureka Springs and say, I'm having a parade. But Greta, I think there is a real call for a business because you go down the street, and all your family and community is there to celebrate.
Yeah. It would be amazing.
It would be amazing. And it wouldn't be morbid. I mean, because think about it. I mean, how about all those funeral processions, when they carry the coffin and thousands witness it.
Yeah.
But, like in our parades, we have all these levels in the shops along, we usually use Spring Street, the main street, and people throw candy and lollipops and, those beads. I mean, gosh, that would be so cool.
Yeah. We should make it happen.
I think we should. Well,
I'm in.
All right, here we go. We need a willing person that's in the process of transition. We got to get their agreement, right? And then we just get a permit for the parade. And let's see. And I guess where the procession would go is then, I guess the finale would be finally take them to where they're going to be buried.
Yeah. And think about how therapeutic it would be for like family and loved ones to build memorial floats.
I know.
Yeah. It would be amazing.
And all the energy of the community there.
Yeah.
Wow. I almost want to die so I can sign up. It's like, do me. I never want to give my organs away, but I'd give myself to a parade.
You're going to fake your death now.
Yeah. It's going to blow my whole idea, though. Here's my idea of how I want to die. See, and I was concerned. I didn't want to be put through all the formalities, right? I didn't want to be brought to some place I don't know about. So what I've been wanting is I did want permission to go and die the way I want to die. All right. So I had this idea. I figured there's a good chance Spirit will give me some kind of heads up that it's time to transition. So I imagine like out in the woods, I'd have like a tiny house, real tiny. All it has to have is a porch with a rocking chair, and maybe a cot to lay down. And I go off into the hills. I know that, it could be 3 days. It takes a while for the body to really go. And I'd be comfortable. And I just kind of rock, and be comforted and maybe lay down if I had to. And then just transition right where I am, and then maybe you know, maybe I'd fall out of my rocket to the earth. But or somebody, I would just tell someone telepathically, you know, give me a couple of weeks, you know, just make sure my body's, you know, on the earth or something like that. But I just wanted to kind of go off and just, you know, experience how, I mean, many of us, you know, from way past, I think there's still people in indigenous cultures, they just crawl up by a tree when they know they're going to transition, you know. But anyway, that's my biggest far out thought.
Yeah, pets do that too, or animals.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. They just know, and they get real quiet, and they just curl up. Yeah, so, and I don't know, you know, I always thought I wanted to be cremated because I don't know, it's just kind of the cleanest way to do it or something. But I don't even really want my body brought to some foreign institution, you know. But I like what you're working on, like up here. That's pretty cool. Yeah, how about Jerry and Tracy? I mean, have you envisioned how you'd like to transition or what that would look like or where?
Jerry can tell you my plans.
Okay,
They do involve glitter and all kinds of fabulousness, and it's a party.
Statuary.
Yes, it's all been talked about. I wanted to get noticed, so.
I'm going to be too busy arranging all of that, so I don't have time to die. I'll be around.
What is Sherry saying, I don't think you're going to die on this planet, dear woman. Your people will retrieve you.
That's true. I will crawl across the veil and bring you back.
Yeah, I know. I could very well be assisted in that way. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. Well, I do love the whole movement of the eco death provisions, and just going back to the earth. I mean, I'm so in love with compost. I just love the whole, I really am. It's like, I can't wait to put stuff in the compost pile. I just love composting. And so when I think of, like, you know, ideally, I don't know why we couldn't put a body right in the compost pile, you know?
That's what I wanted to do with my dad.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was an option. But yeah, I wanted to do it as natural as I could come up with.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love these options so much. I can't even. So thank you so much, Greta. This is awesome to hear.
Thanks. Well, you should check out the Urban Death Project's website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've written it down. This is going to be fun to explore.
It's really, really interesting. I learned lots of things about that movement.
Do we have to give a lot of leeway and time to procuring the things we would need to have an organic death urban? You know, like, is there a lot of processing or ordering?
Well, right. I mean, I think that they're probably about 1.5 years into the project, maybe 2 years, and they still haven't got all the legal things figured out. Right now, they're doing research at a body farm in North Carolina on the proper way to compost a body and the materials that make a body decompose faster, and I think they've figured it out mostly. Now they're working with teeth because teeth take a while to decompose.
Right.
So, figuring all of that out.
That's interesting. Greta, in your opinion, what do you see perhaps that could use some research and development and imagination in the unfoldment of this new and innovative way of dying? Like, do you have ideas of areas that, wow, like the death parade, okay?
Yeah.
But like, yeah,
I'm not sure I understand the question. What?
like to me, what you're presenting is really on the cutting edge right now, okay?
Yeah.
And therefore, it's just opening our imaginations to, oh my gosh, like we can think differently now. We can think out of the box about death. So have any other ideas ever occurred to you, like the death parade,
Mhm.
that, you know, that you've imagined could be an outgrowth of this movement?
I don't know. I think right now I'm pretty much thinking about the open air cremation all the time. It's kind of taken all of my energy, but I know the first thing that has to happen before any of these wild ideas can happen is just a lot of education. So that's my next focus. Just trying to get people talking about death and about options and empowering themselves to think about it in different ways. So
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
that's my mission right now.
It's such a beautiful mission, and you know, and again, I jump back to that Death Cafe. It's that was a brilliant thing to introduce. And did it come out of England? Did it come out of Europe?
You know, I'm not exactly sure.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds kind of familiar. So
Yeah, because I thought when I went to deathcafe.com, I thought it was a British accent that I was hearing. Perhaps the founder.
yeah.
But for those that are viewing, just go to deathcafe.com, and it's really simple. You just find your local cafe that can host Death Cafe and just host it and get people talking. I mean, this is what eliminates all that fear and tension.
Yeah, and it can be anywhere. It doesn't even have to be at a cafe. You can host them at your house or community center. Or, in Fayetteville, I was hosting them at this little punk club downtown, and it was great. I like the Brews atmosphere a little better, but I don't know. I'm working on putting together a Death Cafe Junior now for kids. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the age range is going to be, but I just think that would be amazing, and we'd learn so much from hearing kids talk about death.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's one of those innovative ideas. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
Yeah, well, one of the death cafes that I had here in Fayetteville, an 8-year-old boy came, and he didn't really participate a lot, but he was listening the whole time to everything, and it was interesting. Several people were really uncomfortable with the fact that there was a kid there, and I just couldn't understand why. I'm like, they need to talk about this too. They need to hear about all of it. We're trying to make it not scary, so why protect them from this? You know? So.
Right. Oh, that is, well, you know, now my visions go to all the children that are in hospitals. I mean, all right, there's all the adults are trying to comfort this kid, but imagine if it had a handful of kids with them.
Yeah.
Kids with kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, people hide death from their kids so much. I don't know, whenever I was in Seattle last month, I was staying with this family, and there were 2 little girls, like a 5 and an 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old's best friend while I was there had a seizure at school and died. And it was, I mean, it was so amazing being around these kids and them processing this death. And the 8-year-old, she was just like, I'm not sure what to feel yet. I don't know. I mean, I feel sad for his parents.
Mhm.
And her dad, her parents were divorced, and her dad was about to move across the country. And she was like, the interesting thing that I see is I've been so sad about my dad moving, and now I'm not anymore. That doesn't seem to matter. I thought that was interesting. She's like, all these little things in my life, like, are just little things, you know?
Yeah.
And it was cool that she had space to process that.
Right. Right.
And my own child, she just turned 4, and she's around this all the time, like hearing me talk about death. And she's named after my mother-in-law, who she never met. But so she asks lots of questions about her. And so it's kind of interesting to, and she doesn't know what to think about death. She's really concerned with the fact that I'm going to die someday. But I just try to be completely frank with her about all of it, and um, I don't plan to ever hide that from her. And I love that about whenever I went to Crestone for that open air cremation site, the kids are included in everything. At the cremations, people bring their kids, and kids are running around being loud and playing while this is happening. It's a 2.5-hour process. They're not expected to sit down and be mournful. They're just expected to be kids, and I thought that was really amazing.
Ooh, I love this. I love this. I mean, I was fortunate to have a mother that she was kind of like the counselor for the entire families, and was always helping people to understand the crossing over. And so at a very early age, I had a very extended family, so there was someone dying all the time. I was around a lot of death. But I can remember as young as 3 and 4 being brought up to a casket, and my mother would just, she'd tell me that, well, she believed in the spirit staying alive. And she said, they're not dead, but they've left this body. And she'd help me, like, if I wanted to touch the body, to feel it and feel how the body gets stiff and it's cold. But yeah, it was just like in such an early age that my mother never had any fear around it herself. So I got very comfortable to the point that I've never to this day have gotten satisfied. I almost got close, but I really wanted to see the insides of the body. It just like, I wanted to, because I'd always find animals that had passed over, and I was always like, I just wanted to see inside, what happened. And, but, that's the part that intrigued me. It's like, I kind of wanted to see, like, I'd love to see how the heart, while it's open, how the heart stops, the functions close down. I just think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's not everybody's desire, but
No, it's really interesting. I would love to have that opportunity too.
right.
But
Remember that show that was going around, and I wish I'd never seen it, but there was some kind of body art installation where they really showed the body part.
oh, yeah. You wish you hadn't seen it?
I wish I had. I
Oh, yeah.
missed it.
Yeah,
But
I saw it when it came to Hot Springs. I can't remember what that was called.
yeah,
But it was really amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
They had bodies in every, I don't know, like all different forms and
mhm.
cut open in all kinds of different ways, so you could see every part of the body, the bones and the organs and everything.
See, and I think that's a part that's gotten overly mystified in our culture too.
Yeah.
It's like we don't get to see. I mean, like what? How many people go through surgery or have this or that done? And it's like we don't get to see. And that's part of for those who would want to, but it's a way to demystify our bodies once again, to be able to look inside and, see what does a rip or tear in the musculature look like, and what does a break look like. And, I think that would be a way to help us re-engage with what this body really is about. you
Yeah.
know?
And understanding what happens to your body and all the processes when you die. I think
Yeah.
that, I mean, even talking about death all the time, I just recently researched that and it was amazing. Like, oh, well, I didn't know that that is why that happened, or, the whole process. I'm trying to put together this, talking about education, like a little magazine, almost like I grew up in the mid 90s kind of like punk scene. And we had those handmade zines all the time that we made about every topic, it seems like. So I'm trying to bring that back now. I'm working on a death one. And the first page is like exactly what happens to the body when we die. Like this is what happens immediately within the first few minutes and within the first few hours and first few days, weeks, months, So it'll be, I don't know, it'll hopefully be informative. And
Well, what my experience has been, it's not real easy. I mean, the body is incredibly strong. It's not, we don't die that quickly. We don't die that easily. It's like it takes a while for each of the functions to shut down.
Yeah.
But I just remembered something that I was reading. It's a book. The last name is Laszlo. I think he's pretty popular, but this book is about near-death experiences. But they've been doing some research, and those who have had near-death experiences, when the body is pronounced brain dead, right? There's no signal. They're absolutely dead. And the person is having an experience, of transitioning. And then they come back, right? And they come back to life. What they're doing is the science is finally proving that consciousness and awareness continues after the body is pronounced dead. So this is a bridge to the fact that there is life after death, because a lot of the near-death experiences has spoken to, they can even speak to what happened in the surgical environment, what was happening in the operating room, and what certain people did while their body was pronounced dead. And they come back and they report on, oh yeah, so-and-so did this, and then she took the tube and da-da-da-da-da-da. And so they're gaining a lot more evidence. I mean, it's pretty much a done deal that there indeed is a part of us that's continuing to live and is in consciousness. And so now that's the exploration is opening up to the whole topic of immortality. That's pretty fascinating.
Yes.
But I mean, organically, I believe, I totally believe in it. But for those that are starting to explore, I think this is valuable, because it's opening that option to know that, well, there's more we can be exploring that's outside of this physical incarnation. But so I wanted to offer that. Laszlo, he's been around for quite a while, actually, in his studies. I'll tell you what, I'll get the title of that book and I'll add that to the webpage as well for anybody who would want to look up. I'm checking the chat room here. Yes. Okay, so Pam, you were responding to, that's part of the Buddhist monks training. Which part, Pam? Oh, here we have, Pam said she left her body during a surgical procedure and saw her body, and the nurse is bustling around. Yeah, and she chose to return. Yeah, there's a lot of those. Greta, you probably, I would think, have been exposed to some of those experiences. Have you had any people pronounced dead and then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've been amazed at how many of those stories I've heard, like, since I started doing this. And people that you would never, like, expect to, I don't know, experience this or whatever. But it's interesting. I had two recent stories, two completely different people. One older woman who is extremely conservative, extremely Christian, and then a man, like a middle-aged man, who's extremely liberal, not so spiritual at all. And he was in a car wreck. She was in a procedure in the hospital. They were both, like, I guess, I don't know if they were actually pronounced dead, but they were both pretty much assumed to be dead, and had almost the same exact experience after death. And it was basically like a life review process, and then the feeling that they were completely surrounded by love and light. And they both just kept saying it was just all about love, like, we are love, everything is love. So it was interesting to have two completely different people have such similar experiences.
Yeah, yeah. I forget, there was something was going on around Facebook. There was a beautiful near-death experience. I think Tomas may have posted it. And he was, let's see now, he was pronounced dead, and he was gone for quite a while. And his experience, I thought this is so awesome. His experience was he was looking down on the planet, and he too was just feeling all this love. And the most significant piece was that there was no evil, there was no anyone was wrong, that everyone on the earth was beautifully divine and pure, and that, you know, nobody was doing anything wrong. And then, of course, he came back, and I just think, wow, because in my deeper self, I really do believe everyone is absolutely divine and pure and beautiful. And, you know, and that we just got to get to that place where what we're judging and seeing as wrong and all that is really kind of a hallucination of some sort. You know, it is the illusion that we're not bad. We're beautiful beings, you know, in our heart and souls. And although we may be doing all this trashing around and, you know, all these accusations of ourselves and each other, I don't think that has anything to do with who we really are. You know?
Yeah.
So I love that for you.
Yeah.
Of a near death. Yeah. And Tracy and Jerry, you're still on. You kids want to respond in any way here?
I'll say something. I think it's so awesome that it's coming around to everything is love, because I really felt that for so long, and people are starting to agree with that, which is so strange to me, because I wanted people to see it, but people in the past wouldn't even consider the option. So that this is a topic means the world to me, and I thank you both for raising it.
You're so welcome. Yeah. I have to agree. I feel like even when I watch the other programs on CCN, yeah, they get really intense in reporting. Everyone's spiraling back to the love. You know, it just.
I think that's how it works. You know, we can go far from it, but we always come back.
Yeah. Yeah, and now that voice is being given to it, I mean, come on, we already have, science has met spirit. You know, like we've already proven God exists. You know, in quantum physics. So
absolutely.
Now it's like we have to recognize that science is who we are.
Well, it's funny because my belief has sort of evolved over time, as everybody's do. And I heard a story once that really put it into perspective, at least visually in my mind, of how we are all one. The explanation fit me great. And basically the story is, there's a universal consciousness who's having a card game, because you can't play cards with just yourself. So everybody has their own perspective. And that's really all it is, just different perspectives from the same source.
Mhm.
And who doesn't love variety? So that's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I think diversity is absolutely what we all yearn for, but we're not really comfortable yet with what diversity means. It really does mean there's no two of us alike except in our heart and spirit, but there's no two of us alike. We all are designing these incredible paths, you know.
And it's awesome, that everybody is completely unique no matter what, that they can have similar experiences, but it's still not the same. It's a whole different perspective. And yeah, I think people are starting to learn that is true. That's good.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what's going to bust the boxes up, where we don't have to compartmentalize one another. You don't have to belong to this box or that box, or who cares how the group identification. We don't need that.
Yeah.
I just want to be in the presence of each of you and go, wow, who are you? What, what planet, where you come from? I get that idea.
That's my approach too. I don't care if you are from another planet. If you're different and I haven't come across you as an experience before, I want to know you, It's
Right.
part of me. I want to know more about me. So, yeah, it's hard to get mad at people when you see it that way.
Well, and it's also like this whole, this death cult of being afraid. It's like, come on. That's the biggest box that we adopted on this planet. And we're saying today, bust that box up. And let's all be having our own independent personal experience of what the heck we think's going on.
Well, and to bring it back to what you were speaking of about the physical body and how it transforms during the death cycle, it's so funny to me that we as humans, we don't know that. It's our basic vehicle, and we just don't even know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that education would be interesting.
Yeah, totally. And okay, and you come back to, okay, what we're going through planetarily right now. The whole theme of I don't know, that needs as much life as everything else that we say we do know. And that's part of death. We don't know. And we haven't created that spaciousness in our culture, in our beingness, to be comfortable with not knowing. And I think that's one of the healing tools that is coming to the forefront in our culture. It's like I
think just leaving the fear out of it is a tremendous help, to not even really address it that way,
Yeah, that's good. That would be a first step. It's like, getting rid of the fear. And the way we get rid of fear is you get close to what you fear.
Well, you have to lose the fear of exploration too, because it does take some exploration and personal thought and feeling, and it's a process you go through, but there is a way to do it without fear. It doesn't have to be attached to it.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. Well, and again, there you got that fear, and it really on the other side of it, it's everything we have to let go of. It's everything we think we need to hold on to.
All that conscious death, yeah.
Right. Okay, now that's a beautiful circling around, coming back to the conscious death and how we can practice in each and every moment to prepare for a physical death. It's all about letting go. It's like, if you can imagine, like, in this moment, and it's like Greta, you were saying too, it's like, first of all, we want to celebrate every moment of our life and how awesome it is, how awesome we have this opportunity to just have this experience, whatever it is, right? But then we can also imagine, if this was the last moment, are we at peace with the happiness in our life? Are we at peace with how we are living our life in this very moment? So much so that we can release, we can let go and go into the next moment. because our happiness is not about what we've gathered up and possessed and attained, and we have this big bundle of things. It's like, no, the happiness of life happens because we're in this moment, we're having a great trip, and it keeps moving, and then the next moment comes. That's how we get the abundance of life, is we're in the flow. So you would think that death is, you're just in the flow,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
And I think letting go of the stuff while you're alive leads to a happy life. You don't have to do it when you're on your deathbed.
Yeah.
It can be done, but why wait,
Right. We can
Like
be
that.
making. Go ahead.
Well, that book that I talked about at the Last Death Cafe, Extinction Dialogues, and how they had the idea of living your life as if you're in a hospice state, because they're saying that we are in a hospice state, whether we know it or not, because of climate change and everything, that we're all on the way out. So we need to embrace that and live our life in that way, so having compassion for all things, all people, forgiving things as they come up, like not holding on to grudges, not getting wrapped up in drama because none of it actually matters, and just filling your life with the things that matter, and thinking about that every day.
Well said.
That's good. I like that, Greta. And we are now, we're moving towards needing to have closure. And I just want to ask Jerry and Tracy, do you have any last thoughts before you part? And then I'll get back with Greta.
I'll just say I think that the conversation has been phenomenal, and I think everybody needs to talk about this stuff and really get a sense and a feeling for it's a natural process. We're not going to be here forever. Everybody's going to die. So something Pam mentioned earlier about sharing truth with kids, totally from early age. Don't hide the fact that the grandparent is aged, not doing well, going to pass, whatever. Share it with the kids so that they understand what's going on, and that's how all of this learned judgment behavior and everything that people have around death will be unlearned. You got to start with the young and move it forward like that. And I'll go quick and just say thank you for the discussion. I look forward to more. I have a feeling this topic's going to keep recurring with Get Lit and with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thanks.
Trace?
And also, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to touch on what he said about talking about it with children and everything. Also talking about dying with the dying, because it seems like we love to avoid that because it feels extra uncomfortable. And I've heard so many people, especially in hospital environments, they're like, well, we don't want to acknowledge that dad's dying in front of him because he might just like give up hope and go, or I don't know, they just think it's bad for morale or whatever if you actually say the words "you're dying" to the dying person. And it's just such a disservice. Like you're not giving them the chance to have that experience. I don't know. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm. Tracy?
I would just like to say that I would love it if people would just consider a different perspective around death. And what would you want if you were in that position? Like, what would mean the most to you? And focus on that and eliminate the fear and just love. That's all I have to say.
Tracy, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so appreciate both of you and the sensitivity to the subject. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
both.
Greta.
Oh,
Yes,
thank
thank
you
you,
so
Greta.
much for having me and for sharing.
Yeah.
Big love to you both. Big love.
You too.
Okay, I'll see you kids in the ethers.
Rocket.
Rocket. And Greta, you have been just so lovely to have. I'm just so grateful and power to you, girl. I just want to see you just rock on. You really I just have such respect and honor for the field that you're exploring and for all the opportunities that are going to emerge from the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
So I'm going to keep your number because if I got to dial anybody, it's going to be you.
Okay, I will.
Hi, sorry everyone, we had a little bit of a break there. I'm not sure what you missed, but we are having closure of this amazing show. I hope you heard me singing my praises for Greta, and just want to acknowledge that we'll have more of her links on the webpage in a few days. Biggie usually has the archive ready for us. And I was just inviting Greta to have some closing comments, and then I'll say the goodbyes.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me come on your show and talk about this. And I guess I would just say in closing that I mean, we already touched on this. I think the most important thing about thinking and talking about death is just knowing that our days are limited in our human experience and that we just have to make all of them count. And that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm encouraging other people to do when talking about death.
Right on, right on. Well,
Yay.
again, I'm so thankful, and I hope this has expanded everyone's heart, minds, and souls, and to keep talking about death. It's one of the best things we can do for each other. And again, I want to thank Conscious Consumer Network.tv. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share just such beautiful things with everyone internationally. And please, for our viewers, pledge, donate to Conscious Consumer Network. We do not accept corporate or government funding, and that's why we get to say and do what's real and authentic in every given moment. No one is censoring us. And so please come to the PCN webpage and make a donation. And again, thank you to all the chat room chatters. You are awesome. Thank you to our viewers. And you've been watching Get Lit. We'll be on every Thursday. So blessings to everyone. And we'll see you in the ethers.